Welcome to the Jones Gallery Lecture Series. I'm Sarah Jones, the curator at Jones Gallery. We're a contemporary art gallery in St. John, New Brunswick. Our core mandate is to present work by contemporary Canadian artists, but art education is also important to us, and we think that art history should be accessible, understandable, and free. That's why we hold public lectures at the gallery and produce videos like these. To keep this series free and open, we rely on the donations of our viewers. If you would like to support our efforts, please donate at jonesgallery.ca/arthistory. The link will be below, and that's also where you can find all of our other art history videos, or on our channel. You can subscribe. Okay, up today is Caravaggio's Judith beheading Holofernes. What a painting. So this is in the collection of the Palazzo Barberini in Rome. It's one of his paintings, Caravaggio's paintings, that you can experience in more or less it is a museum. It's a museum setting. The Palazzo Barberini is a museum in Rome. No one goes to the Palazzo Barberini. You should, if you are in Rome, please go. They have this painting. It's worth it just to see this painting in person. You will have it to yourself. You will have the entire room to yourself. No one will be there. It's just a wonderful. This is great. Okay, I'm looking forward to talking about this with all of you. Oh, and as I said, so Caravaggio's large religious works in Rome are the kind of the big ones. I'm thinking about the Matthew cycle and the crucifixion of Peter, the conversion of Paul. They're installed in churches, and it's difficult to really get a good look. You often kind of can't get into the chapel, so you kind of have to lean around and try to get a good look at them. They're a little more famous, and especially the Matthew paintings. So there's always kind of a crowd. The lights go off, so some sucker in the crowd has to go put coins in the little light box and turn the lights back on. Anyway, it's interesting. That experience is worth it, but also it is nice to see the work to see a work like this in a more museum-like setting, where the lights are on, and you can kind of look undisturbed, and that's the case with this one. Like I said, at the Palazzo Barberini. Take thee to the Palazzo Barberini. Okay. So this is a relatively early painting for Caravaggio. This is completed before those Matthew paintings, before the paintings at the Piazza del Popolo. It's a story from the Book of Judith. It's not kind of a well-known story, or really. She's rather an obscure figure in the Old Testament. Kind of the bare bones of the story. Holofernes is an Assyrian general, and he's coming to invade the town of Judith, who's the figure in the young female figure in the center. And she kind of deploys herself and talks him into letting her into his tent, and Holofernes becomes inebriated and falls asleep. And while he's asleep, he's not asleep anymore, she decapitates his head. And typically in the story and in the depictions, there is a maidservant who is ready to pop his head into a bag or a basket, and then Judith becomes a hero figure in the story and saves her city. So that's what we have here. This narrative is a popular one for artists. It does come up kind of again and again. This version by Caravaggio is probably the most famous. There's another video I'm doing about this scene by a contemporary, slightly after of Caravaggio, Gentileschi, who depicted the scene in a very interesting way also. Okay, but today we're talking about this one. So as always with Caravaggio, I apologize if you're watching my Caravaggio videos in a row. This will be a bit of a repeat, but typically with Caravaggio, we see he chooses the scene, the moment of the most kind of climactic, or the most excitement, or the most action. So there's always a sense that if time moved forward or back slightly, that the scene would change. There's always movement and high drama, and that's obviously what we're seeing here. So Judith is depicted, as I say, quite as a youthful woman. She is clasping Holofernes' hair with her left hand, and with her right hand she has a short sword, and she is severing his head from his body. She's about mid-sever, and the blood is spurting from his neck. Can't get much more climactic than that. Holofernes has been awoken, unfortunately, by this action, and you can see he's still in his bed. So we see kind of he's grasping the bed cloths, sheets. That's what they're called, and he's twisting up in agony, and his mouth is open. There's kind of this audible cry coming from him. And so we can see that it's the interior of a tent. So once again, typical of Caravaggio, the scene is reduced to its most basic elements. We have the three figures. There is a strong source of light coming from the left, illuminating the faces, especially that of Judith. We're inside a tent. We get a little bit of the red tent in the background, or kind of a red cloth. I don't know if it's the tent. Maybe it's the drapery. And anyway, it has the effect of a tent. And then her elderly maid to the right. So just keep this scene in mind. This moment, the moment that there's always innumerable decisions that go into the creation of a painting or a composition, and artists have to choose. Okay, so we're depicting. Been commissioned to depict Judith and Holofernes. When in time is it prior to the decapitation, during the decapitation, after the decapitation? How is the scene going to be composed? Where is Judith in relation to Holofernes? Where is the maid? What will be Holofernes' reaction? I mean, within reason. So innumerable decisions go into this. So it's always interesting to compare other artists' approach to the same scene, and I've done this kind of repeatedly, comparing an earlier version of the same scene with the work done by Caravaggio. So this is a painting by Sabatini, a painter from Bologna, showing us the same story. This is from about 30 or 40 years prior. And what Sabatini has elected to do is to show us the after effects, which are still gruesome. I mean, you can see the decapitation has happened. So we see his headless body on the left, and there is blood shooting out from the I don't know how to describe this, the neck. Anyway, moving on. And the head has been placed on the table. Sabatini has elected not to show us the maid, and Judith is depicted here kind of holding the sword. Her hands are bloody, but it's the moment after. So it's the climax has passed of the narrative. That she has succeeded in this. There's no we don't get a sense of kind of a danger or not know. I mean, we all know how the story's going to end up, but just there's a sense more of something could happen here potentially. It's a more fraught. The tension is higher in this scene that Caravaggio has given us than the Sabatini version. She's composed. I mean, again, granted it's a grisly scene, but she is composed. Her face is calm. Her body is making a triangular structure, which is a very stable kind of undramatic kind of pose here, kind of holding the sword upright in triumph. So this to me is a more stable, a more calm, as it were, ignoring the grisly subject matter, obviously, but there's a more stable, kind of non-moving composition compared to that of Caravaggio. I'd show you just a few details. So here's a detail of Holofernes. And I mentioned this, but that open mouth. So the sense that there is there's something audible here in Caravaggio's paintings, and he's used that. That comes up from time to time. So this is another painting by Caravaggio of the Medusa, and he's shown us here when her head has been severed from her body. This is a scene from Greek mythology. I won't get into the story, but here you can see that look. Her head has just been decapitated, and so there's that look of kind of shock and horror, and that mouth, that open mouth. So if we can hear this, this painting, and the sound that's making. So it's increasing the again, that kind of theatricality or the drama, the impact of this. That there are multiple senses that are potentially involved in this scene. Notice how Judith is almost leaning away from the body. So she's I don't know what kind of leverage she's getting here on. I don't know if one can decapitate a head from this distance, but I think Caravaggio is just trying to give us the effect that she is kind of young and pure and untainted, and she is creating this or undergoing this heinous act. Is an act of self-sacrifice, and so she knows the gruesome nature of it, and she's leaning as far away as she can. And that look of concentration on her face. The contrast in the kind of the white purity of her clothing with that of the interior of the tent. They're kind of darker, kind of reds and greens. Compare her stance with that of her maid, who is in effect leaning in, ready to pop the general's head in a bag. And notice Caravaggio often has like a contrast in the figures. So Judith's kind of youth and beauty and innocence is highlighted, or we read that more dramatically because of the depiction of the maid here. So very kind of grim and resigned face. She's ready to put his head in the bag. So youth and age and kind of revulsion and kind of resignation and expectation. Yeah, she's up for it. She's up for the task. There's always a sense in Baroque art too, the theatrical. So it looks sometimes like it's the drama is even exaggerated sometimes, and I'll often show this painting to my students as an example of this. That we have a literal curtain in the background here that's almost being pulled apart. So it's like it's almost with Caravaggio. It's like we're seeing little vignettes. And the curtain is always being open for us at the moment of the most tense, the most fraught moment. I kept repeating moment, but but that's typical of the Baroque approach here. So it's almost above. Sometimes it's a little, it's a little overboard. But that's the nature of the aesthetic in this time period. And and it's notable that we have this curtain here, so it does create this sense of a theater. We're seeing a scene. There's, once again, I've mentioned this in looking at other Caravaggio paintings, but looking at the colors with Caravaggio, and there always seems to be kind of 3 or 4 dominant colors, and everything else is sort of white or brown. And so we have the red curtain and the green blanket, and then the yellow dress, and then that triangle. Those 3 colors, kind of basic colors, are pulling us. Those create a sense of balance to this flurry of activity that's happening here, and frames in the composition. And there we have it, Judith. And remember, it's at the Palazzo Barberini. So, how you can support the lecture series: you can donate at jonesgallery.ca/arthistory. Technical support today by Caleb Jones. And I'm Sarah Jones. Thank you for watching.